Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Office Hours, a production by SchoolRubric, where really we're just a bunch of educators that get to sit around and have a conversation like we're sitting on a couch, is what we always like to say, in the background before we come out. And those are the most real, authentic conversations. But before we kind of dive in and talk about what we're going to be doing today, we need to do some introductions. And today I'm going to start with the person that is new in the room to Office Hours, and one of my dear friends from Australia, Kylie. Kylie, could you do a little introduction for us about who you are and a little bit just about you as a person? That way our viewers know who you are.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for having me, Spencer. It's great to be here with Traci and Melissa. And I, like Spencer said, I'm in Australia. I live by the beach, so I've been down watching the whale migration at the moment. But generally, I'm a teacher and a mum. And I have transitioned out of the classroom just prior to the pandemic to help teachers with my design tool, which is called a Splat 3D. So we invented it. It's now in 14 countries around the world, and we're really busy helping educators everywhere develop spatial reasoning for design and for STEM with their students. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. And I'm just excited about having a conversation today.
Yes, and thank you for being here. And I love Splats too, so make sure you check out Kylie. She was on the Innovative Teacher podcast. We talked before. I can't remember what episode, so you're going to have to scroll back, find her name, but she was absolutely awesome on it. So go check that out after this. Obviously, not right now because we're about to have a conversation.
Don't go.
Yeah, I know right now. Traci, what have you been up to? Let us know. Everyone knows you because you're so awesome and all the things you do, but what have you been up to lately?
You're so sweet. Hi, everybody. It's good to be back. Enjoying the summer, taking a breath. That's number one. Working on my first book and working on my first book.
That's enough said right there.
Yeah. Melissa, what about you?
Hello, everyone. I am Melissa. I am here in, unfortunately, very, very cold New Jersey. We're supposed to be on summer break, but I think we're more like Kylie on winter break. It's 60 degrees here, so hopefully tomorrow we have a better day. I plan on going raspberry picking with some friends and my kids. So what I've been working on is just doing a couple of global projects and, just looking forward to spending time with the family this summer. So I'm just very excited to be here again and hear these students' perspectives and their reflections of the year.
Yes, so we have an awesome opportunity today where we have 4 different students in the reflection of last year. And as we know, last year, as we talked in many episodes before this, we've talked about things from students' perspective, from parents' perspective, from teachers' perspective. We're doing it all here at Office Hours because we want to cover all that and really reflect on that and say, hey, what have we learned from that experience and what can we do, moving forward to give our students the best experience overall and the best education we possibly can, because that's what we're about here at Office Hours. So we're going to dig right into our first prompt here with our first student. Yuna, I said that right. I'm 99% positive. Did I? I did.
Yuna, I believe.
Yuna. I knew I was going to do that too. I am so sorry. And I said it 100 times. I am so sorry. If you're listening, I apologize completely for that. So she said she's a 6th grade student in Japan. She said, I went to a school trip and visited several historical places. I was so excited to learn Japanese history by visiting famous places written on my textbook. I am now interested in the world history. Wow. What a way to twist around kind of what was happening to her during the pandemic and say, now I found a new passion. And I feel like a lot of times with the pandemic, everything that happened, everyone came out kind of with a new passion or something they really wanted to start pursuing. And that's kind of what I take away from this is, how can we bring history into the classroom now that's maybe more authentic? Traci, I'm going to bounce over you. What do you kind of see when you kind of hear this prompt?
Well, I want to add in kind of an interesting perspective as I read this. I think you said that we learned so many different things, but the cool thing is we learned so many things about ourselves. And so I think as educators, as we were planning and being very creative about and intentional about the experiences that we provide for students, it then turned around and allowed them to really connect in a different way with all of these experiences, hence what Yuna said. So as educators, we have to remember there's some things that we just need to make sure we hold on to and continue going into this school year and beyond. And it's that everyday consistent innovation in our teaching and our planning and the experiences that we provide students so that these kids can find out about their passions.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. Kylie, would you like to add anything kind of to what we're saying here or what you're seeing when you look at this prompt from her?
Yeah, what I'm really struck with is, so my grounding in education was as a Reggio teacher. And in Reggio, they really believe that the third teacher is the environment and that we can learn so much from the environment, the architecture, looking at the detail, being immersed in it, what music's being played, you know, what do the flowers smell like? So I think that that's what I'm really struck by is these immersive experiences, whether we've been able to give them to our students in person or whether virtually, that the actual environment in which we're helping immerse the student in is really powerful in terms of teaching. So I particularly love this. I love the image. Who wouldn't want to be in Japan smelling cherry blossoms, right?
I love that you want that like perspective too, because kind of like we talked a little bit behind the scenes before we started, Kylie, you know, with social media, TikTok and all these different kinds of apps now, you know, there's people that are like, hey, let me take you on a virtual tour of like the town I live in that just happens to have a lot of history. And, you know, kids are starting to be like, wow, that is so cool. And it really makes them dive into that. And it makes that, you know, those different, you know, flowers they're seeing in you know, in the architecture kind of stand out to them and maybe speak to them. So those kids are starting to find their passion that way. And that just gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. Cause it's like, wow, social media, you know, a lot of times we hear a lot of negatives, but in that case, hey, we're seeing a positive on how we can implement history in that aspect to the classroom. Melissa, what do you see kind of when you see this prompt here?
So I see that her learning is outside of the classroom. And like Kylie said before, she's using her 5 senses to create this new learning experience for herself. And she is learning history, basically being transported back to where her history is from. So I just think that it's wonderful that, you know, teaching is not just only in the classroom, but she also sees it as learning outside the classroom and, you know, using her 5 senses in the environment that she's in. So I think that's just a wonderful experience. I wish my experience wasn't, you know, history wasn't taught through a textbook. I wish it was like field trips like this. I think we gain a lot with that.
So Charles said he wanted to pop on and say hi to us. He's down celebrating his anniversary. Hi, Charles. We miss you as usual because you're so awesome. We appreciate you popping in. Melissa, to what you were saying too, I think, you know, one thing that really stood out to me as we're kind of wrapping things up here, learning, we have learned so much. You know, a building is great and a school is great, but if we stop educating our kids when we go outside those walls, I don't feel like we're doing it right. And especially from this prompt, it seems like, hey, we could be learning in all different kinds of places. It doesn't have to be a school. It can be online. It can be, you know, on a field trip. It could be here and there. And I just feel like that's what I mean, as a group, I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing here is, you know, we can learn in so many different environments and in so many different ways. And hey, that's all right. And that's what it's all about. So
absolutely.
I love that one. And we appreciate her helping us out with that first prompt and creating that one. And now we're going to move on to our second one here. And we're going to get that up here to the side with Skylar.
Okay, I'll read Skylar's quote. Attending high school throughout COVID has definitely been a crazy experience. During this year, I have experienced so many new things that has made me have a different outlook on life. All while attending school virtually and in person, I have also gotten the opportunity to virtually visit classrooms from around the world. When visiting these classes, I've gotten to talk to students about their sustainable developmental goals and how I have participated in working on project-based around them. This is Skylar, 10th grade, Colorado, USA. And Skylar, it just goes to show no matter how old you are, you can be a role model. now with this whole virtual classroom, she is taking it upon herself, being a trailblazer for her own age and her own generation, to teach students about the sustainable developmental goals, which are, I believe, the future of education. So I just applaud her for knowing how strong her voice is and for inspiring others to kind of look around them and seeing, what are some issues that we have here in our community or globally, and maybe what actions can we take to go forth on that. So I think she's doing an incredible job, and because of COVID, it gave her this opportunity to reach out to other classrooms. So what do you think, Kylie, on her?
Yeah, I love it. I'm very interested in the Sustainable Development Goals, having worked on projects here in Australia with the Department of Education. What I particularly like about the virtual aspect of being able to connect with students in other parts of the world is that very part of problem-based learning and understanding the cultural context. So whereby in a culture on the other side of the world, a problem may need a totally different approach to what it would maybe in Australia or the States. So what I love is that when we're actually trying to find solutions to these problems, it's so important that we understand the user's context, right? And so often I have a great idea. Oh, why don't we do this? And they've got donkeys, so why don't we get the kids to, get the donkeys and get them involved, and they can drag the. But then we find out that women and children aren't allowed to work with cattle. I'm talking very broadly here, but we've seen it time and time again where, good intentioned ideas to solve problems in the world with these sustainable development goals lack the context of that actual, community and culture. So it's quite phenomenal to me that in grade 10, she's making these connections and understanding the power of that information in problem solving. So well done. I think that's a great reflection.
And when I'm seeing it, I love that you said this, Kylie. And I was going to bounce right off of this, that she's in 10th grade and she is saying what she is saying here. In 10th grade, I felt like I would not have said something like this or even thought something like this. The fact that she has changed her outlook, let alone, involving different parts of the world in 2 different kinds of projects. And as someone who teaches STEM, PBL, Makerspace, and even trains teachers in it, getting adults to have a different outlook on what's going on is hard, especially in a tough situation like a pandemic. So hats off to her for having just a positive mindset, a different outlook, and saying, hey, how can I change the world around me, for it to become a better place, basically. And so much of what I teach, that's what it's about. So for me, when I hear this, I'm like, wow, that's a great reflection. And I feel like that's something I hope we can all take back in the classroom and say, something did happen that wasn't great to our students, parents, everybody, like we've talked about on here many times, but what can we do to make sure, hey, we learned something from this experience and we're going to grow from it and get better from it and do better. So that's kind of what I took, besides saying what, kind of what Kylie did. Traci, what about you?
I'm all over these breakout flexible learning experiences. I mean, she is totally speaking my love language, but it's not just my love language. Like, this is the way that our young people need to learn. Not how we want to deliver instruction, but giving them the freedom to explore what they're interested in, what they're curious about, what they want to know more about, and then watch what happens. Watch that flower just grow and bloom phenomenally and get taller and taller and broader and broader. And speaking of broader, these connections across countries. We did the same thing. I'm actually looking at Skylar like, was she one of the kids we connected with? Because kindergarten, my class, and a 10th grade class actually did a collaboration on sustainable development goals and universal design learning. So we have to provide these experiential, out of the box learning opportunities, because this is making future ready kids. We shouldn't be teaching the way we learned, because things have changed so drastically. We are in a technological society right now, and we have to give kids those opportunities. And that's oftentimes very uncomfortable for some teachers, but we have to get outside of that box. In the summertime, even though we need to take a break and relax from COVID teaching, this is a perfect opportunity to test the waters and try something new. And one thing I don't want us to miss is the fact that she said, all while attending school virtually and in person. So she was in a blended learning environment and still had these wonderful opportunities. So while I applaud Skylar, kudos to her classroom teacher for giving her this space and this freedom and these opportunities.
Yes. And I loved everything you said, Traci. And to kind of tie it all together, I think so much of the time when we had the in-person learning versus, the blended learning or online learning, there's so many different tools and things we can be using for the kids. And as we, we've done other reflections about teachers. So that's not what this is about, but you can see the kids, they love it. I mean, there's stuff I used during COVID that I use now as far as, different learning tools, and the kids are like, oh, I really think this is really cool. And it gets them excited about something that, usually isn't that exciting, or they didn't think was that exciting beforehand. And now they're like, wow, I love this. So I think, Traci, you're speaking my love language too when it comes to that, and getting those students just excited about those things and just her outlook on life. This was just a great prompt for us to talk about. And now we get to move on to our third one, which Kylie is going to read for us.
Yes, so I'm talking from Ronit's perspective, and this is his quote. He is in grade 7, India. This year was unique and exciting. The pandemic brought so many challenges and opportunities. The classes were switched to a virtual setup, and I couldn't visit the middle school building. The internet glitch issues were some, but so were the opportunities to connect with across the globe. I participated in numerous global goals, projects, and conferences to share my perspective. I learnt many digital tools and strive to face all the problems. Never could I imagine such a situation, but the pandemic taught me many things to reflect on. Really powerful statement there by Ronit in year 7. Truly confronting the reality of the pandemic in India has been extremely significant, for students and teachers. And the very fact, that he's gone out of his ways to indicate that he has learnt so many digital tools, and he's learnt how to use these tools to address the challenges in his environment by, being in a virtual learning environment instead of in his normal school building. So I think that it's quite extraordinary. I was lucky enough to run PD for 200 teachers in India during the pandemic, and the passion and ingenuity and sheer drive to help support their students. It shows such an indomitable spirit of that culture. So India's definitely got a special spot in my heart at the moment with everything that they've gone through and the children there. So quite remarkable for a year 7 student, I think. What about you guys? What do you think, Melissa?
I think I love the end when he said that he took this year to reflect. And I think that, it's one thing that we're learning through these experiences, but it doesn't really make an impact for us or for the students unless we reflect. So I love that he persevered through these experiences, and he seems to be resilient and had a positive mindset. But I also love that he was able to reflect during this time as well. So kudos to him.
Absolutely. Do you love his shirt?
Yeah. Yes, I love his shirt. I love his shirt.
I didn't even notice what was on his shirt. I didn't even notice.
It's the
Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh, what? Yes. I didn't even notice it.
Yes.
That's bad. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, he's working with
nice.
I love that image. So yeah, he's certainly a global citizen there. What did you think, Traci, of that beautiful comment?
Just knowing what India has gone through, probably still, sorry, and to see this child smiling, to see the resilience, to see, that last sentence, never Never could I imagine such a situation, but the pandemic has taught me many things to reflect on. So it's even bigger than resilience, like his character. And that speaks to, I literally have goosebumps because, I'm looking at those words and I'm thinking he has a strong support system through his family, through his school system. That's kids and adults. We can come out of this pandemic stronger or not stronger and struggling. And, mental health is so very important. Always has been, but it's essential that we tend to that right now. And you can tell that he's in an environment where social emotional learning is at the forefront, woven into the fibers of his day to day. And so to see him smiling, knowing what India is facing, I was really trying to get myself together, just looking at his smile, knowing what we know.
You're exactly right. And I want to just build off that, Traci, because I had something kind of similar. For me in my classroom, I always talk about, try to relate to what I'm doing in my teaching. And in STEM, it doesn't really matter what we're doing. I always say, if there's a problem, we're trying to solve that problem. And if we fail, we try to solve that problem again and again and again and again. And I try to preach that to my students because I know in life they're going to face problems and they're going to face things that aren't great. And that's just, part of life. So I even wrote down, and that's why you keep on seeing me look over, because I wrote it down because I wanted to read it word for word. He said that I strive to face all the problems, not one of the problems, all of the problems. And that really stood out to me because it's like a kid that age taking that on and saying, you know what, I want to solve all the problems. I want to do my very best for, my country, people in general, for education. Just, I speaks volumes, really, I think, to what he is about as a kid, as you can see, and really kind of makes you as a teacher, or even if you're a parent listening, want to just do better in everyday life and saying, I can solve all my problems. I know I can rise above that now. So that one really touched me too. So I definitely get it. And we even got down here, it says, this is what I agree on. The boy is feeling determined. And yes, exactly. And I think that determination speaks so soundly. And a lot of times when kids are determined like that, it makes teachers determined, parents, administrative, everybody. It's just a big reflective, kind of cycle. So that was an awesome prompt. I'm so glad we were able to, do that one. And now we are on to our last one, Traci, which you get to read for our last popcorn reading. We did some popcorn reading there.
Yep, we did. This statement comes from Alani. She is a 6th grade student in New Jersey, and she says, my school year was still fun but different. With all the plexiglass, masks, social distancing stickers, and hand sanitizing stations everywhere, it was a peculiar year. What I liked was mask breaks outside and getting more time outside for class. On nice days, we went outside and sat wherever we wanted. Our teachers tried to make things easier for us. What I didn't like was less time to socialize, not being able to move around the building or even in our classroom. So let's unpack that. Alani really gave us her authentic heart and her authentic takeaways from this school year. And, when you even read that second sentence with all the plexiglass, masks, social distancing stickers, hand sanitizer, like I'm envisioning the halls in my building where we had, all the cute hands and the little feet, and the kids had to, strategically placed 6 feet apart. But she's smiling. So, through all of this, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over with each of these kids, is that resilience, that character building. And the most important thing that I think we should not miss, I think we said this earlier, but the classroom, the school, is not the only place that learning should take place. Like on a regular basis, we should be getting outside. We should be using all of that environmental space as our classroom. So totally celebrating Alani right now. Kylie, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It really struck a point of interest for me when she talked about all the processes she has to go to school in the first statement, but then the benefits of actually being outside and what that meant for her. And I think that relates back to Ronit too in India, where we see him planting a tree. There is something very grounding about being in our natural environment and being able to access the outdoors. And so that was really wonderful for her because despite the fact that they couldn't connect as much socially, at least they were able to connect in some way to their natural environment. So I really liked that. I think that teachers have obviously tried to strike a really good balance for their students at that school. So it's just extraordinary, isn't it, where we find the silver linings. And to ways to connect. You can't connect with a person. Can I connect with a tree, a flower, a building, like a piece of music? Like we connection is just so empowering and important. Yeah. So that's that. I get that from her beautiful smile and sense of interest in learning.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I know Traci said that she was envisioning the hallways and Alani really gave a great description of what her everyday was like. And I feel like I was there beside her in the classrooms with the masks and the hand sanitizers. And it was a peculiar year. But she also said in her quote that her teachers try to make things easier for us. And I love that she is also highlighting how the teachers, no matter how difficult and challenging this year was, and how the routine was crazy, and you had to do the hand sanitizing station and keep 6 feet apart. The teachers really try to make things easier for the students, and I just think that's wonderful that the students are able to reflect and see that. And I'm sure most of the teachers who hear that are grateful that the students are voicing that.
When I read this, or even, now when I hear it again, and one thing that stood out in my mind, I still remember the first couple of weeks being back in our building because we were in person, all the stuff that she said was going on. And I remember I started kind of doing some lessons outside. And finally, I looked at one of my teacher friends and I was like, why, like when we were being trained, why did we never do stuff outside? Like, what was this notion that we can't do things outside? And there's like the pandemic happens and it's like, do everything outside. And I'm like, I wish I would have done this 3 years ago because the kids loved being outside, learning outside. They got so much more out of it. And the projects we're able to do outside were phenomenal because we don't have to worry about making a mess or being too loud maybe necessarily. And the kids get to really be kind of themselves when they're outside. So I'm kind of like, man, in college when I was being trained, like I felt like it was a big no-no. And even when I was in school as a kid, I remember being like, we got to stay in the building. And now it's like, why? So I feel like when I read this, it's so much about like what, I think Kylie kind of hit on it. I mean, everyone did a little bit, but, just kind of being outside with nature and getting to do stuff outside where, you get to see trees. And I know, like, at least when I'm outside a little bit of my day after being inside all day, I'm just like, oh, this feels good to be outside. So I think that really this year has really kind of just changed my whole perspective on the way I teach, on my students' perspective, on what we can do outside. I know we did like a bunch of fun projects like egg drops and all kinds of fun things outside where, we're excited about learning. We want to come to school and, they get that socialization, but they're apart, kind of thing. So definitely for me, it was learning outside, but I definitely see all those different aspects, like you guys are saying. And she did such a good job of painting a virtual picture of what those hallways looked like. And I would love to take this little prompt and read it like in 5 to 10 years. It was like a history lesson to like kindergarten, first grade kids coming in being like, what in the world are they talking about? That's kind of the hope of things and stuff. And I kind of joke about that, but it's kind of crazy because that might be how it is, 10 years from now, I might be like, wow, that's so crazy. But what a great prompt. All those students, thank you so much for allowing us to take your voice and amplify it here on Office Hours. That is all the prompts we have time for today. So we are going to wrap up. While we wrap up, I got to give you a little bit of news, and I don't want to forget about that. So I'm going to talk about educators without Borders, or sorry, Global Educator Networks, or Global Educators Without Borders. Check it out. There's a bit link there. They're incredible. You know, they grow with purpose and they're driven educators. I know it's a great network to be a part of, and just limitless possibilities for you. Thank you all for being here and partaking in the student reflection. Kylie, it was your first time, so thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Traci, Melissa, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys all for tuning in. It was a great time. So have a great, fantastic rest of your week and summer break or winter break if you're in Australia. So see you later.
Bye.
Thank you. Enjoy the outdoors. Bye.
Thank you for watching School Rubric on YouTube. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe in order to stay looped in on all of our diverse collection of shows, interviews, panels, tutorials, and more from educators around the globe. And visit us at SchoolRubric.com for even more great content, such as our online articles, Interact magazine, featured podcasts, and more. Thank you.